It is 128 pixels width and 320 height. Now, if it's tile set 2, which is where the majority of custom tiles will go if you're not doing a full revamp, it'll be 128 by 192. So I'm going to create a new file here, 128 pixels wide and 192 tall, because I'm going to be editing tile set 2. Now, you're not going to want to have a transparent background, and you're going to want to pick a color that you're not going to see on most tiles. I usually use a purple because you're not going to see that in a lot of places, and if you are, you can just pick a different color. And then I use this grid. I usually try to put a 16 by 16 grid on everything I do with tiles, because a tile is 16 by 16 grids. So is a tile is 16 by 16 pixels, so you're going to want to have a little visual for what will be on what tile. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get some graphics. You can find tiles sheets online, you can draw them, you can have someone else make them for you. But if you're using some online, which is what I do, completely fine, no shame in it. I see a bunch of other games that use tiles that they found online. No shame in it if you're not good at art like me. A lot of these aren't 16 colors, but that's okay. I'm going to be teaching you how to index on Sprite. If you don't have Sprite, a lot of apps have a built-in sprite, built-in indexer, or View will work just fine for this. I just like to use Sprites because it's good. I can change what I need to instead of having to bounce between applications like you will with View. Now, I'm going to pick something a little bit smaller, something simple. I used that log last time. Maybe we'll pick a tree or a rock. Let's see. I don't want to add a building. We'll do a cactus. We'll do this cactus with the flowers right here on it. Okay, so we'll copy that and we will paste it into the sprite. So this is not indexed yet. This is all the basic colors. This is 256 colors. Any colors that can be on it is on it. So we will end up indexing this, and I'll put a couple more things on so you'll see that it's okay if things get dulled down color-wise. Another thing is if this sheet has transparent shading right here like this one, you're going to want to make sure you get rid of it because it will not pull up as a darker color of whatever it's set on. It'll pull up as a dark purple. You do not want that. It'll look very bad. We'll also grab this plant here. And then we'll grab something that has some more browns so you guys can see that it's okay if things get washed out color-wise. Usually they'll look good with even 2 to 3 colors. We'll grab this log here. And then we'll get rid of those shading spots because like I said, they will show up as a dark purple and that's not what we want. So once you have your tile sheet made, you can fill this whole 192. You can even, if you want to get really specific, you can go by blocks, which is a 4x4 pixel if you really are trying to cram in just about everything you can. But as long as it's within 192 by 128, it'll fit in the second tile set. So you can definitely add more. I'm just adding a couple of things here for just for the sake of this tutorial. So then you're going to want to index it. If you're going to be doing a complete graphics overhaul, what I recommend is doing things by color. So like making a test sheet where you have your green palette file and you test how things look in the green palette file and things like that, etc. But full custom graphics is definitely not necessary to make a good ROM hack. No custom tiles are necessary to make a good ROM hack, but if you're like me, I like little bits of decor in my maps, so I like to throw in ones that just liven up the map, make it look a little bit more clean, nicer. I like overgrown textures, so I usually add a bunch of different tall grasses, leaves on the ground, dead trees, things like that. So you're going to want to index this. You can use View. View will work fine. I like Sprite. It has a nice built-in one where I can just punch in how many colors I want it to use. So in this case, 16. It doesn't look like it's changed yet. That's because I haven't set it to indexed version. You can see the palette is over here on the right. Then I can just switch it over to indexed. And as you can see, some of the colors are a little bit more washed out. Mostly due to this plant here. You can always do different tests and stuff, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just gonna leave it like this. So what I'm gonna want to do next is I'm going to want to save this tile set that I have now created as a PNG. So I'm gonna save this as tutorial decor. I'm gonna make sure I save it as a PNG. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to get a palette file for that tile set that I just made right here so that I can insert it into the game. Now, Tile Helper Advanced by INT is amazing. It'll dull down some colors for you if you need them dulled. I think it usually changes that color purple that I use, but it works fine. You load the image, you convert the tile set, it'll yell at you for your color not being black, but that's fine. It's more ideal that it isn't black because you're going to have a lot of darker borders on colors, so you're not going to want to index with black. So you're going to want to save this image now. I usually just take it and I just rename it to have a 2 at the end. Just like that. This way I can tell this is the second version, this is the version that is ready to be inserted into the game. And then I'll save the palette file. This is very important. You absolutely need the palette file. If you have EarthView installed on your computer, it will try to automatically set it as an EarthView palette. You don't want that. Your colors will come out darker than they're supposed to be and all muddy and gross. So you're going to want to make sure you select Advanced Map 1.92. Don't do this on 1.95. You'll end up most likely breaking your game. And then you're going to want to name it something similar to the tile set. Like I'll just name it Tutorial Decor. Just like that. Oh, it's trying to replace it as a PNG. Okay. So then you're done with tile editor. You can just pop it away, get rid of it. And now you'll see that we have our 2 tutorial decor pictures. This one we're not really going to be using anymore. Only use it if you want to add more stuff to it with that palette, at least in Sprite. So now I'm going to need this image, and then I'm also going to need to insert this new palette into our ROM, and I'm going to need to save the tile set in that palette. So now we're going to open up Advanced Map. And we're going to just drag it over here, and we will open our Fire Red. Now I'm gonna add this to Palette Town so that we can see it as soon as we start the game. You're going to want to go into the block editor, and the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to insert the new palette. Do not use any of the palettes from 0 to 6. Leave those. Those are the palette files that are used by the actual game, and if you plan on using some of the game's tiles, you don't want to mess with that. You'll end up having miscolored tiles. So only use 7 through 12 unless you're going to do a full tile revamp. Then you can start experimenting with writing over those other ones. But if you're just adding decor, I do not recommend it. So we're going to overwrite palette 7. As you can see, it's just blue and black. So we have our palette file saved to our folder. So we're going to want to go over to the palette section of the block editor and load a current palette from file. We're going to go into the folder and we're going to find our palette. Okay, so here is our palette. Now, one thing that you'll notice right here is the background color here for all these images is a green, and that's not what we want. That'll make the transparent background of the palette one of the colors of our cactus, and it'll also make it so that there will be a beautiful purple box around it. That's okay. We can edit the palette in here in Palettes and Show Palette Editor. So as you can see, here is what our current background tile is, and here is what we want our background tile to be. So all you have to do, just write down the numbers, switch them in their spots, copy that one, paste it over that one, click 15-bit to RGB and apply, and then go back up to the first one and put in what you want your background color to be. And there we go. Now we can see that that is our background color. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to save the tile set 2, which is Palette Town's tile set with Professor Oak's lab. We're going to want to save that as our second, or we're going to want to save that to our computer. So as you can see, you want to make sure that you have it set to palette 7 because it will then save it in that color so that it'll insert your tiles in the right color. So you'll save tile set 2. I just save it to my desktop majority of the time so I can just grab it right away. Now we can see tile set 2 is right here. It is in the colors of our cactuses and log. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to open our second one, the one that we got from Tile Helper. We're going to want to open it with paint, and we're also going to want to open the tileset.dib with paint as well. I don't think a lot of pixel editors are very friendly of DIB files, but paint will open it, and that's all we need. Then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that these line up with the bottom of a 16 by 16 grid, and they do. And then we'll go to our custom tiles. We'll zoom in, and we will crop it so that it is just what we need. We'll drag this up to the bottom of the cactus, just like that. And then this is two 16 by 16 grids, as we can see right here. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to just want to select the whole thing. We're just going to copy it, and then we're going to go into our tile set, and we're going to paste it in. And you can paste it in right over the top just like this. It'll work. However, it'll get rid of the other tiles that are there, meaning that Professor Oak's lab right now will just look like a beautiful mess of cactuses and logs and purples. So we'll just put this in here. We'll make sure that it's within a 16 by 16 grid, which seems like we just need to shift it up there. Okay, and then we just want to file save the DIB, and then we're good. So what we want to do now that we've got it edited on our DIB, we're going to want to go into Advanced Map, open the block editor, and then just picture load tile set 2, find the DIB that you just edited, and click to open. It is extremely important that you want it to write new space because that means it worked. I've never had a time where it needed to write space and things didn't come out how I wanted. Sometimes if it just does it regularly without wanting to create new space, you'll either get solid colors. The item that you want to add will just be one solid color. It usually comes from the image not being indexed right. Just go through all the steps again. It'll be a little frustrating, but once you get this down, it's pretty simple. Repoint the data, go over to palette 7, which is the change palette we had, and if we scroll down here, we'll see that we have our cactuses and our logs, which is great. That means it worked. The next thing we're going to want to do, though, is we're going to want to write current palette to file. Or not current palette, my bad. We're going to want to write palette changes to ROM. If you don't do this, it won't change the palette in the game, and your tiles will come out as whatever the old tile or the old palette was. Then we'll scroll down to where we have some black blocks, some open space, and we'll just put these new tiles in there. You're going to want to make sure that these are usually the up tile because they are not going to have a background, so you're not going to want to drop them onto the down tile. It'll leave black holes around the item. It'll be a log on a black box, just like you see it right here. So we'll just add in some of the basic grass behind it in a bit. We'll just finish popping these in real quick. You don't have to do it in the actual size of the shape. You can just do it in a line, but since I have the space, I'll actually put it the way it needs to be. And then I'll just come up here. I'll grab this, and I'll put it on the down spot of every single tile we have here. Okay, and then these tiles are ready to be put onto our map. If we scroll down here, we'll see there's our custom tiles. So we can take them, and we can just put them down wherever we want them to be. So I will just make a little line. Now it's going to mess up the path, but that's okay. You can always make it keep the path look just by going into the block editor and changing that background tile. Then we will save our game, and now we can go into Visual Boy or GBA No Money, whatever GBA emulator you use, and we'll be able to see that our tiles are inserted. We'll run past we'll come down here, and there's our custom tiles. Just like that, it's extremely simple. It works better once you have a nice, clear understanding of it. Just sit and practice with it. Just try it out. You'll eventually start realizing things like, oh, I can do this to make this work. It's definitely something that comes over time. But yeah, if this helped you out, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll put my Discord server in there. You can join it. You can track my ROM hack that I'm working on right now. You can ask me questions. I'm usually pretty active, but if not, sometimes my community will be able to help out. Either way, thanks for watching. I hope this was able to help you. If you guys think that I should make more tutorials, if you like the way that I did it, if you have other things that there's not a whole lot of great tutorials about out there right now, let me know. I will consider making tutorials for them because I've got a pretty good grasp on the majority of the things about ROM hacking. But thank you so much for watching.